This is the Team Objection podcast for November 1st, 2018, episode 366. We have a full crew here, and we're taking advantage of it to bring back that segment that we debuted just recently, Hall of Fame. With all four of us here, it's the only way to make appropriate votes to get in. If somebody's not here and we sneak in a candidate they don't like, there could be repercussions.
I'm ready to fight. I'm going in. The gloves are on this time.
Okay.
I'm excited.
I still can't get over last time. It keeps me up.
I know. You're really mad about it.
I'm professionally ready to have a lively debate.
Also,
Look at
look
you.
like a professional idiot.
right, he's all dressed up, and you can see the reflection of him in the background there too.
Actually, the funny thing is, I think Shaun is more professional than that because he had like a brandy snifter or something that he's drinking out of, stroking his chin.
Truthfully, I don't know if you can't really tell. It's Lord of the Rings, like the inscribed text in a
You have
glass.
lost.
And it's wine in the glass, and if it's high enough, the text will actually change colors.
Love it.
You've
So-
lost all credibility.
Oh, I had so much.
Speaking of losing credibility, Michelle.
Sorry. But so I always put my phone, so it's always on vibrate, but then if I leave it on like a regular surface, fine, you don't hear it. But I always put it on like a half surface, and then it just vibrates super loud.
Yeah, it freaks out. Yeah, I saw your face too. There was just that blip of panic.
Sorry.
And the roommate's here by the 2-minute mark. Everything's coming up roses.
So I'm ready this week.
We just hit every single fucking Team Objection podcast trope in the first 90 seconds. It's
No, my
amazing.
cat's not here.
That's
If
true.
I want to
Oh,
be
true.
clear. I don't have to have these people get in. That's not the issue. But if I think somebody should get in, that's where I have the issue. Or shouldn't.
Right.
If you guys vote somebody in that I'm absolutely opposed to, I mean, that's the issue as well.
Right. So it's basically the segment called Hall of Fame, but we should call it Shaun's Hall of Fame.
Because he's the only one that matters. Clearly,
Will my subjects agree with me? Find out this week.
Should we take the
Although-
fan-submitted one first or second? What do you think?
First.
Well, and I want to know who submitted it.
So longtime fan of the show, Carrie, when we did the first time on YouTube, sent us a comment with 3 people. We quickly realized we can't do 3 of these in one show because it goes way too long if things get heated, and they probably will. So we've already cut that back to 2, and instead we're just going to pick one of them. That's not to say we won't do the others down the road, but we did want to take at least one. And that first person up for nomination in the Team Objection Podcast Hall of Fame, the TOFAF, is M. Night Shyamalan.
Shyamalan Ding Dong. I have so many
Poor guy.
opinions about M. Night Shyamalan. Not all negative, actually.
Same.
It might be surprising to some people, but I truly, for all of its flaws, I love Signs.
I
think it's
also
great.
love Signs. Thank you.
I think it's a great film. It's cinematically really stunning. The character arcs are great. Yes, there are some plot questions as to why an alien race would come down to a planet that is like 70% water, if that's like their weakness. But you know what? I don't care, because I was so engaged by that film, and it in my opinion, it kind of like changed horror films for me. And I think the scope of horror, like to that kind of more terror, I don't know. I think it's super important, like genre-wise.
Here's my issue with Signs. Is back in the day when Shyamalan was hot with 2 T's, most people really liked that movie. And the theater that I was in was going bananas. When there's like the kid's birthday party and the alien
Oh my
walks
God.
by. Yeah, retrospect, that looks dumb. But in the time, it's like, holy shit. Everybody screamed in the whole theater.
Terrifying.
Yeah,
Like,
it was really
honestly,
scary.
It was terrifying. I had never seen anything like that before.
Yeah,
So
I
good.
think he deserves credit for making an image that out of context looks silly. But when you're in the movie and you're immersed in it, you're like, that is really scary.
Yeah.
I've never understood how he got as much shit as he did, because when everything came out, Sixth Sense came out, it blew people's minds.
True.
And when Signs came out, it was really critically acclaimed. And then it was like after a year or two, everyone was like, God, that sucks. It's like, yeah, because you know what the big reveal is.
Yeah,
So of course it sucks now.
This is going to be an analysis. Shyamalan's fall, 2 steps. Step 1, every movie had a twist.
Yes.
I thought it is neat. People don't like it. And to be fair, I think he struggled to keep people on their toes. And the twist came at the expense of like effective storytelling. Like The Village is probably the first really good example of the twist that was just like, okay, this was dumb.
I I like the village.
It's okay, but like,
I think the twist is all right, but I think it does feel a little bit shoehorned. Like, well, I've had these twists, now I need to have a twist, and it was one that kind of like Shaun said is like, I don't know if you needed to go that
the
route.
problem is most people agree that movie would have been just fine with no twist. Like, just tell a straightforward monster story.
Right.
It would have been fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem is I've seen with anything like that is you set something up and then you got to raise the bar. And then you got to raise the bar again and again and again. And if you don't hit it with absolute precision each and every time, you can't win. And so if you set up that expectation, you're just screwed.
So the second example, I agree with you, Dave, is in lieu of doing an effective twist, he just started making just bad movies.
I know, this is the thing. What was the water one?
The
Lady in the Water?
Lady in the Water. I was going to keep saying Shape of Water, but clearly that's not the same movie.
No.
Yeah, Lady in the Water was bad. I saw it. Terrible. The Happening, didn't even see.
Bad.
Don't ever want to.
Heard it's bad.
And I don't want to undercut an entire nomination too early in the process because we really want to talk it through and give someone their due, but I'm not confident that I can feel supportive of any candidate who has The Last Airbender on their resume making it into the Hall of Fame.
That's it. That's my problem. That's my real issue.
It was doubly bad because it was a bad film, and he also made decisions that made no, like, creative control.
I know.
That made no. There was no reason except he was like weird, like power play almost is what it felt like.
The name thing.
I'm just gonna change his name.
It's stupid. Like that shouldn't matter at all because whatever. It's spelled the same. It's still the same name. But it's like, why? Why just piss off people and set up that horrible start?
Yep.
You're climbing uphill at that point.
I think what Shaun said is accurate. It feels like a power play. It's like, I have creative control. I'm going to do it like this way. It's like, what do you have to say? This is not a loving homage. This is you being like, I am now the one who's making these decisions. And to me, like, if you're making like a loving adaptation, you should probably go with the source material best you can, in my opinion.
The problem here is that this is a series that people love, especially the original, although people have also really liked Korra. And our group is no different. A lot of people spread out across this that are here now or have been on our platforms love Avatar. But even if you remove the source material from the equation, which is a huge undertaking, it's still a bad movie.
I know.
It's a butchering of beloved source material, but even if you take that out of the equation, it's not good.
Yeah.
And that's what I think really hurts it, is that you can't be awful on both fronts.
Has he done anything good in the last 10 years?
Yes, we're going to get to that in a second.
I think there is.
Don't worry.
There is one good one at least.
Don't worry.
I watched like the first 10 minutes of a movie with James McAvoy in it, and I was like,
I'm
this
gonna
is
tell you. Stop undercutting my point.
This is the one, though, yes.
All I wanted to do was touch on really quick the twist at the end of Signs. I think it's a lot of flack for. We buy a lot of our suspension of disbelief from mini movies is very low. Like we'll accept a lot.
Yeah.
The fact that we are like dying on this hill of the aliens wouldn't come here. And here's my question. Did it make for a satisfying end? To me, very much so. Did I spend the whole time thinking, well, wait a minute. Why? No, it didn't strike me.
I think it's shitty too.
It gets too much flack. I agree with that 100%. I do think the biggest problem people have is it's like one of those core questions that should have come up early on that they should have seen coming. Because M almost seems surprised by the backlash, and I'm like, I do think it's overblown, but you can't see why people think this is a little bit off-putting.
I mean, I can think of a lot of reasons why they still would. He should have too and put it in the movie. Just a one line.
Just a little thing. Just be like, oh, it's actually this instead. And it turns out they're, whatever. Like, okay, great. I don't need a huge explanation for it. Just something that goes like, yeah, those questions that are going to come up, I thought about that.
I heard a theory that the aliens are actually demons. And it's like the water is like holy or something.
I mean, that would go into the whole religious aspect of the film.
I feel like actually that was almost borrowed from War of the Worlds in that sense, how all the aliens in War of the Worlds were just killed by something like this, almost a Deus Ex Machina type of thing, where it's like, oh, hey, they're dead, yay!
I actually was just thinking about War of the Worlds, and people gave that flack as well, but...
That was also a 100-year-old story.
It is a 100-year-old story. It's like, did we really understand how these things, bacteria works and stuff like that? But yeah, it did seem kind of like an homage to that. That was kind of my assumption of it, but whatever.
So to Michelle, M. Night, careers in the garbage, like the once touted filmmaker in the toilet.
Because After Earth was also bad.
Dude, you don't remember that was him.
Is that Will Smith and Jaden Smith?
Yeah, it sure is.
That-
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Okay.
wonder
So-
how much of that is bad because of him. Probably a lot, but I've heard the Smiths can sometimes be difficult to work with.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of how much blame he gets for it, his career's on a bad track. Because Last Airbender, After Earth, but then...
So
So-
Split comes out,
Split. Okay. Yeah.
and for
I like
once,
that.
it's like a good movie.
Yeah.
I have some issues with the ending, like some.
The guy
like-
crawling on the wall.
No, I thought that was fine with me. I thought
I
it
don't
was
know, it's kinda weird.
thematically like a problem. That the message seemed to be like if you've been through trauma, like you're good, and like by
You're
being
exempt from.
by being the like she didn't make a choice at the end, just by being the victim. She was exonerated, and I thought that was a strange creative decision. Regardless, though, it was an engaging movie. A lot of that credit goes to James McAvoy. But still, it was a good movie.
I watched the first 10 minutes of it and I was horrified. And then I couldn't watch the rest because I had to leave or something like that. And I was just like, what did I just? And I saw it like in my Shyamalan came across in the credits, and I was just like, what is this? Like, it seemed very well done.
Even if the movie sucked, it would have been worth seeing just for his performances. They're so good when you get into he's portraying so many different characters, and he has little ticks. It's not just a different voice that he's doing; it's a completely different performance.
The switch between them is really kind of amazing because you're seeing the same guy, and then it's like, wait, no, you're totally different right now.
And I feel like at one point he is one of the personalities pretending to be another personality, and you can kind of, it's really good. That's
amazing.
Yeah, it's real cool. That one though did have a twist, although not a traditional Shyamalan twist, so which I appreciated. It was just pretty much a straightforward story. The end, Michelle, it reveals that this takes place in the same universe as like Bruce Willis in Unbreakable. I was like waiting for a reaction. I think it's coming.
No,
Have you seen Unbreakable?
I didn't remember that.
No.
No.
Okay.
No reaction.
But not
I was like,
Unbreakable.
oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, wait, you haven't? Do you know about Unbreakable? Have you heard anything? Okay.
Who's
God.
the star?
Bruce. Shit.
Indie film leader
So-
Bruce Willis.
Bruce
Got it.
Willis, Samuel Jackson. It's a movie where Bruce Willis has like never been sick. Turns out he kind of has like invulnerability superpowers. There might be more to it than that. And Samuel Jackson is like his foil. Bruce Willis survives a train crash. And at the end of the movie, you find out that Jackson's character set up the train crash and is like his villain because he wants to bring out that potential in him.
Okay.
So you find out that in Split, it's the same universe, and now there's a third movie coming out, Glass.
I heard about that.
And that's Jackson's character and Bruce Willis's character from Unbreakable, and the girl and James McAvoy from Split, like all combining.
That's cool.
It's really cool, and it's like no one was expecting that. I would say no one probably wanted it, but it's awesome.
Like, I kind of wish there would be more playfulness with films like that, especially like across like movies, ones that you might not think are even related. Like, I think that's really neat. I think that's kind of where film should be going, honestly. And so that's great. I respect that a lot.
Like, who could have expected, like, I don't know, Unbreakable was 10 years ago or more, that this completely unrelated movie would tie into the same universe. Like, that's cool.
That explains now why I was so confused when they mentioned like the name at the end. I was like, am I supposed to know who that is?
Yeah, but you know what? It was smart, though. They did it after the credits, so it's not technically part of the film, but it's a teaser for this now new team up for the end of this trilogy that just came out of nowhere. And I have to give them props, but that's why this is such a difficult vote.
So here's my difficultness with this is you want to go career-wise, you can vote on that. I know nothing personal-wise about him. And we kind of judged our last one on personality a bit. And I know nothing about him personal
Yeah,
life.
well, I
So
think that's a good
in a way,
thing.
that's probably good. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's been no scandal or anything like that, so that's probably a good thing.
He
Yeah, that's
seems like a good guy overall. I think he has. I've heard of incidents like here and there, but I think when you're he has been blasted. Like, he's been one of the most maligned directors at times. So the fact that for the most part he's handled that with grace, he's no like Uwe Boll, where he's like, oh, I'm gonna box my critics. You're like, sit down and then shut up. I
There
haven't
it
heard
is.
anything. I'm
There's the
assuming it's
cat.
good.
There it is. And he was shirtless for a while.
Everybody
so.
take a drink.
Yep. Shirtless
There you go.
roommate, cat. It's all there. It's all there.
The Objection Network drinking game is now complete.
God.
So I feel like I have to rate him as an asterisk because, like, if Glass comes out and it's amazing and he's pulled off this trilogy, even then I don't know if it's quite enough for the Hall of Fame, but without it, it's I would say certainly not.
So 7 is our barrier to get in, right?
I don't
8.
think so. It's
8.
It's
Okay,
higher.
that's right. 8. Okay. All right.
this
Well,
is
Chris,
kind of hard.
Chris, you said the most, so you should probably get us started.
All right. There's a lot more misses than hits. 4.5.
Keeping it going, keeping the long-winded explanations going. I
I'm
like
trying
it.
to think. Is that true?
I
And
agree that
yeah.
if I agree that if this does tie together well, it would raise his score for me, but it is absolutely not enough for me.
Well, so you have The Village, which is you have Signs, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Unbreakable, which is great.
Sense,
Sixth Sense, which is
great.
great.
It's basically everything from 2003 to 2015 that is just a goddamn disaster, because all those movies that we just said are outside of that.
And then Split, like
Yeah, because Split
after,
comes more
after
recently.
a huge.
Which is cool, and you know what? Good for him for having like a redemption story out of all this and kind of turning things around, because it didn't look like that was going to be the case for, again, the better part of a decade. But Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
No.
I
Yeah.
think I am going to say that he's 7 for me. And I
Wow.
think because there was a really high, bright, shining couple of years there where it was everybody ever talked about. But you got to grade a whole body of work, so 7.
I appreciate that though, Dave, because I think like anybody can do something bad, but like to have something that's truly great is impressive. Like, it really is he had a string of movies that were excellent, and that's really impressive for anybody. So with that in mind, I think I'm gonna go 6.
All right, Michelle, give him a 10 and it won't matter.
And if
Yeah.
Glass is great, and he's managed to pull off this crazy trilogy thing, it would jump to 7.5. It would not be enough for the Hall of Fame, but like, to me, a 1.5 is a lot, and he would deserve it.
Yeah, I'm actually, before you guys even gave your scores, I was square in the middle of the 6.5 for the same reasons. I always have a special place in my heart for Signs, and I really love The Sixth Sense. And I am one of those people who likes The Village. I think it's a pretty solid movie, despite its twists that seemed a little unnecessary. But I haven't really been interested in anything he's done since that. And Avatar, man, it really hurts him. It hurts him real bad. So, and I haven't seen Split, unfortunately, so I haven't really seen this redemption story play out. But I was interested in the first 10 minutes. I was just like, I was kind of blown away, to be honest. But so yeah, 6.5 as it currently is.
The problem with Avatar 2 is like he had kind of had some bad movies, so people were like, I don't know, but
Yeah.
they were also like, I don't know, because they're like, we've seen his body of work, and it doesn't tonally seem to be a fit at all. And then it wasn't,
No.
and so everybody involved looked terrible.
Swing away, M. Night.
We had
Swing
one
away.
shot for a good film adaptation of that show, which maybe was always going to be bad. I don't know, but
No, wait, why do we only have one shot? How many times have they remade all sorts of different shows? They could do it again.
They
Yeah.
could, but it's more niche.
I exaggerate
Yeah.
with one shot, but it's probably going to be one shot. I know they're doing they're remaking the TV show.
If that's successful, they could have another shot at it.
Yeah,
That
that's
is true, but even so.
Yeah,
That's tough.
I understand.
And this is like, I think this is going to be true of almost everybody we put up for this. There's going to be these ebbs and flows, and having done this nomination at a different time would be interesting, but I don't know if there's too many more that are going to be so bipolar like his, where 2002, you might be like, oh yeah, man, that dude's definitely in. And then like if you went 2014, you'd be like, fuck no.
I don't know,
Two.
Chris. We may be approaching another
What?
one who's similar.
Well, there hasn't been a redemption for that one yet, but I guess we'll see. There's still time with.
We'll get to it.
We will.
We'll get to it.
So M. Night goes squarely into the Hall of Fame with his 6 average score. That's not a terrible place to be. It basically says you existed. You were all right.
You okay?
He made a blip.
You're in history.
I think there's a decent chance that Split kept him out of the Hall of Lame.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're not wrong.
for sure.
So I guess good on you for that, M. Night, and welcome to the second tier that doesn't have an official recognized building. You just exist somewhere in the ether.
He's kind of standing outside the door, I think.
Yeah, looking kind of wistful.
He's in a tent. But the twist.
At least he has shelter.
The twist is that he was actually Bryan Cranston all along, and he's in. That's what he's been doing all this time instead of being in movies. He's been directing. No.
What if he was not a real person? And like they just like filmed some other dude and that like wasn't M. Night at all. I think that would be interesting.
So like,
Or it was
he's
a computer the whole time.
Right, he's
Yeah.
like the gorillas of directors.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
even really mention that he's like one of the only Indian anything in Hollywood, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So
That's all. He directed a bank commercial one time and it was not good though. It was like it was like trying to be like spooky and whatever. It was just dumb. It didn't work.
6.5. Going down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Demerits for everyone. Demerits. So we thought, since we selected that out of Carrie's suggestions, we would go along a similar path with our second nominee, and eventually we'll have to kind of spread this out a bit more. We've been a tiny bit movie heavy, but then again, we all love movies, so who cares? Our second candidate is somebody who's also been much maligned at different points in his career and also had incredible peaks at certain points, and his name is George Lucas.
Man, in 1982, 10 out of 10.
yeah.
I think people
I
would be
wasn't born in
hard-pressed.
1982.
I don't
was
know.
not
I don't
born then.
know though. I don't know. So
Not
yeah,
everybody-
Star Wars.
Yeah, not everybody loved Return, but even so, like I don't know who would not put him in an 8 or higher at that point.
Yeah, I mean that's true. I also don't know. So now we kind of know of some stories behind the movies and how great Empire Strikes Back was, and how maybe not as much it had to do with him. And then he took over the reins again, and it kind of dipped, and maybe was a sign of what was to come. But yeah, I mean, A New Hope. It wasn't the best film, but it was like the most important one. Like, look what he accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Amazing.
you talk about I'm talking about it like I know anything. I can't even come close to understanding what that movie changed
Oh, it was everything.
for everything at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's weird hearing people talk about it because obviously all of us have grown up with Star Wars. It was completed, like the original series was completed even before we were born, pretty much. But I remember, like, I think I've said it on the show, my dad went and saw Star Wars, the original A New Hope, like 12 times in the theater,
Yeah.
which is insane to think about nowadays, especially.
Well, it was when a class is teaching, like, here's the world's like most basic and yet satisfying story beats, they like Star Wars is one of them. Like, it has all of that, like the hero's journey,
Hero's journey.
literal beat for beat. But then you fuse it with a lot of the advancements in technology that he helped pioneer and a lot of his unique ideas from the world itself to even like the naming conventions are so iconic. The sound effects are so iconic. Yeah, it's like really impressive.
I actually kind of resent the remastered versions just a little bit because I think it's taken away from being able to see the original and how well it holds up. Now, obviously, there are several elements, especially sci-fi stuff, that looks dated nowadays, but when you consider what it was at the time, I almost wish you could see the original more readily now and not the ones that have been upgraded and had extra scenes tossed in.
I totally agree.
Absolutely correct.
Well, though, you know, the weird
CGI
thing?
has aged worse already.
I know.
Yeah.
Than the
I
old-
know.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You watch episode 1 or episode 2, and it's like, oh my God, this is the worst animation I've ever seen. I would rather have claymation at that point.
Yeah. It's actually it's underrated, really, to me. So that was a 1977 movie, the original Star Wars. And you give it some slack because it was, but again, like it holds up so much better than I almost think Phantom Menace does in a lot of ways. And that's 22 years later.
Yeah, give me Puppet Yoda. I don't want this gross CGI bullshit.
Yeah. That was
So-
maybe the part I was most happy about in The Last Jedi.
Back to
was
Puppet Yoda.
We had Puppet Yoda again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't need
So-
him to be doing flips on
Yeah.
flying Senate platforms while he fought Palpatine, so they had a little more leeway.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
17-year-old me thought that was really cool.
So,
But
yeah.
I mean,
I was 17.
it's a neat moment. Yeah, I mean, you're like, oh shit, Yoda's about to get real, and then you're like, oh,
Well,
Well,
look,
they
we'll
always-
get back to we'll get to those.
okay.
'Cause
Okay.
I can defend it too, Dave. I appreciate you.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I see you, Dave.
Empire Strikes Back, I can't even imagine at the time what that must have been like.
God, I can't either.
Like
Yeah.
nowadays, we're so steeped in these tropes that if it like you could have the same thing happen and it wouldn't have the same impact. This was like a first in so many ways.
I try to put myself in someone's place in 1980, walking in that theater, man, I love Star Wars. I love watching it. It was so cool. And you walk out and it's like, Luke, or he goes, no, I am your father. It's like, holy shit, what is going on?
Yeah.
Did he just say that?
Yeah.
You don't
like
even
it-
know that there's like a person in there for sure
Yeah.
at that
yeah.
point. You don't even know
You
it's a
know nothing
person who's
about it.
capable of having kids at that point, really.
All you knew was, yeah, Obi-Wan said that your father was killed by Darth Vader. That's all you knew.
Yeah. And why would Obi-Wan lie?
Yeah, exactly.
And then
So
Luke goes to that
good.
same problem. And I also, now, I'm not a huge film buff. Okay, let's just get that out of the way up front. That has to be early on, if not the first ever, like, well, this is the second movie in a thing, and now there's not really an ending.
Mm-hmm.
Please stay tuned
yeah.
for number 3.
A cliffhanger
Yeah.
ending,
Yeah.
a depressing ending
Very.
on multiple levels. The whole father, the hand, and then also Han Solo getting
Han
frozen in
Solo.
carbonite.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know if he was going to come back at all. To be honest, he wasn't if some other people
wasn't
were
then,
in
yeah.
charge. So,
Like, how bold of a decision is that at the time? Again, it's easy to undersell now, but you're basically saying to people, all right, we're going to have a lot of people walk out of this unhappy.
Yeah.
These decisions that we've made creatively, knowing there's a third movie coming, but even so, we're going to have people who've paid money for this walking out going, oh, shit.
I
Doesn't
wonder,
happen very often.
I wonder what kids thought in that time, because I've read stories, and I don't know if it's for the last Avengers movie or for something else, where like kids
Yeah.
were traumatized.
That's what I was going to say. It's probably the exact same reactions that
Yeah.
kids had with Infinity War.
And I'm glad, you know what? Because whatever, kids, yeah, they're important, I guess. I don't give a shit. Like, I feel like everybody knows this. I'm not saying anything new. We're pandering to kids. Like, we want it to be consumable by kids, and it's like, I much prefer this type of storytelling where we're not worried about who we're going to offend. We set out, we want to tell a story, we want to tell it the way we want to tell it, and you know, you all can be damned.
I do have some reservations about ending like a completed story on a cliffhanger for a lot of reasons. I mean, like there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to complete that arc, especially in like film, and the TV's the same way. So I kind of have issues with that. But I mean, in this case, it was completed, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But I
Well-
mean, I kind of see that being an issue. But
What I would
ultimately-
say, though, Michelle, is like, it was a cliffhanger because you obviously know there's more story coming.
yeah.
But a lot of the character arcs are complete. Like Luke
that's true.
leaving training to come get his ass kicked. Like it's almost like a Game of Thrones-esque like lesson. You should have listened to your master. You didn't, and you got messed up.
Hold this L.
and kind of like the same. Like there's a lot of lessons learned. There's a lot of character arcs that are completed. Maybe not in a like happy way, but
Yeah.
it kind of does come full circle. And then
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. But
I
anyway,
feel like that happens less in Infinity War. I mean, I think Infinity War is very much just like, we're going to cut in the middle of this movie. Bye. And it's kind of like,
Well,
all right.
Infinity
But they
War,
can do that.
they
It's
do
Infinity
it
War.
only if it's like only if you're following the actual characters. But if you're following like Thanos, it's very much is like the completion
Sure.
of his story.
It's true, but that's not what I'm really there for.
Right.
You know, that's what most people probably aren't there for either, because it's like, what?
You gotta watch that movie, Dave, so you can join in this.
I've seen Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2 now.
All right,
Oh,
we're
you're
getting
making
there.
such tremendous progress.
We're getting there.
I'm moving along. I just need to watch movies on flights, apparently. That's when I can watch the most movies.
That's actually a really good place to watch movies. And some bad movies are more enjoyable on a flight.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I would agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
It's weird.
so-
I don't know if the bar's lower or what, but
So George Lucas
you're
was top of the
captive
world,
audience.
right?
Yeah.
And then
Oh, yeah.
he waits so long.
I think the decline started with Return of the Jedi. I mean, partially, I don't know how you could have.
How many people at the time is what I would ask would agree with that, and maybe it's a lot
at the time. At the time, but I don't know how you follow up Empire with Return of the Jedi and have it make it good. I don't know, like it was a no-win situation almost. I think in that sense.
I still like Jedi a whole lot. Like
I do too. I do think it's probably the least successful of the three, but I still think it's solid. I do.
I think
it's
really...
better than Episode 1.
I think moments in Jedi are phenomenal. They spend about 300% too long with Ewoks, but
Definitely.
I mean, sure.
That's part of it.
And you can tell they didn't know what to do with Han.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Harrison Ford wanted him to die. They were like, no, you're too popular. And he looked like they had no clue what to do with him.
They backed up a Brinks truck for him and gave him a bunch of money and said, all right, fine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But Luke's story, and part of the reason why, even now, I have a hard time with non-Jedi stories in Star Wars, his story's great. Everything about that whole thing and how it wrapped up, I love it.
Yeah.
So I still like that movie. I liked it more than A New Hope. Less important, maybe less of a. If you're looking at film composition, it's less of a good film. It's a worse film, but I still liked it. I enjoyed it a whole lot.
It was top of the world in mid 80s, like everyone would have voted him in. And from everything I've heard about the new trilogy is he put his mark on it way more than the original trilogy. It was like, all right, you had such great success with episode 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, and 3 is all yours, George. You do what you want with it. And we found out that there was a lot of other people that contributed to 4, 5, and 6 that made it good, that kind of overrode him.
Yeah.
Well,
Lucas in 4, 5, and 6.
He didn't direct 5. He didn't direct 6. He did write, direct, and produce all 3 of the new trilogy.
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
And he did the original as well. He's all 3 in the original Star Wars, A New Hope, but he was not in either Empire or Jedi, and then he was again for all 3 of the newer trilogy.
It showed that what you need is someone with a great creative vision, but also somebody else to check them. Because sometimes that vision gets out of control. Yeah, sometimes that vision gets too out of control and they get all too up in their own head and they can't see how someone else might interpret their vision.
Mm-hmm.
Well, George Lucas is great at lore.
Yes.
And he is not great, it would appear, at storytelling.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, as far as the world that was built in episode 1, 2, and 3, I actually really like it. I like the idea, the story of the Senate. I like the story of some of the politics in it. But as far as a movie goes, it's not the best place to tell it. The expanded universe, if you want to talk about it there and go in depth in there, that's a really cool place to do it. But as far as the movies go, not a great place to do it. And Hayden Christensen, the more I see that movie, my God,
yeah,
what a horrible choice.
Well, The Boy is worse, and I feel bad because he knows that it's ruined his whole life.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
Oh no!
I feel bad.
Actually, the more I see it, the more I'm okay with The Boy because he was just a little kid. Like
I know,
little kids are going to be weird, but Hayden Christensen is. Ugh.
It is frustrating because it's like this is the one casting you have to nail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is, we know where this character is going. I mean, obviously Obi-Wan's prominent in these two, but let's be honest, these are all about Anakin. This is the one character you can't fuck up, and he messed it up twice.
Yeah.
And Ewan McGregor I thought was excellent as Obi-Wan. I actually really loved that.
Yeah. Looks
Liam
better.
Neeson,
Looks better later now too. I think that's as time has gone by. It was like, yeah, he did a really good job in those.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson was awesome in episode 1. I thought, even though it was a bad movie.
Dave, it's funny that you said that about well, what did you say exactly? Basically, like he has this great universe, but he doesn't know how to explain it. I read this article that talked about how George Lucas almost had this perfect trilogy of movies, but he ruined it. And if you get to the core ideas of the Senate and the Jedi, being all about balance, and yet they're like this weird militaristic brainwashing organization that seemingly is about anything but balance. There's no balance what they represent, and it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Truly great. But then you get this angsty, stupid love story that ruins the whole thing. And it was so close. It had so much potential.
Mm-hmm. That's where you needed that editor, I think, to kind of check it and be like, well, it's important that we have Padme and Anakin, obviously, because we need to explain how Luke and Leia were born. Got it. Has to be in there. But then again, it's also can we not focus on them rolling around in a field of daisies for 15 minutes?
So it could have been Anakin struggles with this narrow mind frame of the Jedi because he was brought in older, so he didn't have the child brainwashing, and he questions their ideologies. Padme being one of them, but it could have extended to a whole bunch of other things. And he probably could have been right on some of them. But like it didn't go there. He wasn't presented like that. He was presented as some kid who can't control his emotions. And I think it's so unfortunate because he could have been like a really sympathetic but like menacing like villain, and he's not really.
The biggest problem I have with those 3 movies in retrospect is I don't know who's likable. Obi-Wan? Okay. But like Yoda's kind of an asshole. Mace Windu's kind of an asshole. Obviously, Palpatine's an asshole. Anakin's an asshole. Padme's kind of an asshole. So when I'm taking the grand summation of things, I'm like, everybody here is just being presented in a way where it's really hard for me to root for them because it's like, yeah, the Jedi are wrong in a lot of ways. So give me that juxtaposition where Anakin has a point. And he's like, he doesn't. He has no point. He's just a brat.
Yeah, exactly.
Not Jar Jar.
Yeah, Jar Jar. I mean, that's
Jar Jar is the likable one, obviously.
Senator Organa from NYPD Blue.
In his 3 scenes, he's pretty likable.
Yeah, I liked him.
He shows up. I'm going to take a baby. Here you go.
Dude, I could write
both Fett's unlikable.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
I could have written. I mean, there's so much there. He could have been so interesting. You're never going to be like, I'm on Darth Vader's side, but you could have at least seen how he gets to where he got. And you don't really.
And they, again, yeah, like you said, they were close. They're like, I'm afraid of hers dying, and this fear is going to overtake me and make me do things that I wouldn't, do normally, but out of protection. And then he ends up force choking her. It's like, well, that just killed your whole idea.
Sure did.
I know.
Yep.
Sure did.
Yep.
Yeah. And
again, so close.
And even in so I like Return of the Revenge of the Sith. I do
too.
One of my favorite of the entire series, talking in the original trilogy as well.
It's the best of the first 3 for sure.
Yeah. It might be like my second favorite in the entire thing. Maybe even my first. I will go back and watch that movie 100 times. Whereas Empire Strikes Back is like, it's great. It's a good movie. But like, I can only watch it like once every few years at most. I love Obi-Wan. I love all of that. But even in that movie, you'll have a really dramatic, well done scene. Obi-Wan and Anakin screaming at each other. It's like, wow, I'm really emotional. And then you have like Darth Vader being like, no. And you're like, you did that. You saw that.
Mm-hmm.
You probably told them to do it like that. That was your direction, and
you saw it on film and decided to keep it.
Yeah, you saw audience tested, and you didn't care.
And on the one hand, it's like I don't want to give Lucas too much shit for kind of failing to meet himself in the middle when he knew the end point of these characters. But on the other hand, it's like this was kind of a layup. You already had established characters; you just needed to build up to them. You knew where you were headed, so one part of the 2 endpoints was done, and you fucked it up.
Mm-hmm.
We need to talk a little bit about Indiana Jones. We can't spend too long on this. We're going to go over on time, but we gotta acknowledge the rest of his breadth of work that's not Star Wars.
I actually don't like Raiders of the Lost Ark anymore.
I think it's
I don't know if anyone
fine. It has moments that are fun.
It's aged well.
I don't think it has either. I think it's okay.
Aged well because, and we were talking about plot holes and stuff before, but like, it's so clear that he is causing like everything. You're like, just like go home. What are you? Stop it.
Cut it out.
But then and the Temple of Doom I actually kind of enjoyed, although that one has issues.
Temple of Doom's campy, but I enjoyed the most of the original 3.
There's like racism.
People hate that one.
Sexism and
it's a mess, but I kind of enjoy it. It's the most entertaining.
To me, nowadays, Last Crusade is like by far the best. That
probably holds up the best. And I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Sean Connery,
Yeah.
come on.
And like the tests at the end were imaginative, super well done, and he actually, I mean, I know he's kind of working for the bad guy again, but it was under duress at least this time. He actually gets to show his shit, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was, there was an apologist article written recently on like IGN for like, it's actually not that bad, and you're like,
No, it is really that bad.
Yeah, it is.
Because they were like, well, this moment's cool and this moment's cool, and I'm like, look, I'll admit some of the scenes were cool.
A couple of moments don't make it a good movie.
Exactly. And I wasn't really enjoying that film up till the alien reveal. And then once that happened, I was like, I am totally out.
I know, I'm the same way.
Yeah. So I'm not really excited for 5 in 2021.
Right.
Whatever it's going to be called. And I guess we should touch on a few things just in the other body of work. American Graffiti is good.
I have not seen it yet.
I've heard
good
that.
things.
I've heard that. That was like his first movie, right? And
Pretty
then-
much. Like not
first
it was
big
technical first, but certainly his first big one. Yeah.
That's what led into Happy Days, right? I think that's what Happy Days was kind of based off, was American Graffiti, I think.
They're similar in tone and whatnot. There's
Yeah.
a lot of big names in that too, including Harrison
Yeah.
Ford.
And I will say his work, although indirect, his consulting on like the Clone Wars, that's like I think he's found his niche. Is like we're gonna
Super.
come to you with our ideas. You're gonna explain it to us, and
And then
we're
we're
gonna
gonna
get like the okay.
Yeah. Here's my lore. You crafted it into something that's not shit.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, people love Labyrinth. It's a cult classic. Howard the Duck, I find vastly overrated.
I don't get Howard the Duck. But
Willow.
Labyrinth is good.
My mom loved Willow. I never got it. And there's not a whole lot else in here that really stands out to me.
I never got Willow either. I've seen it, and I was just like, well, that happened. I
You
like
know nothing about
Labyrinth.
it.
He didn't direct that, but he did write and produce it. So it's all right. So we got to vote. This is tough because again, it's part of a snapshot in time, and as we mentioned, about mid '80s, maybe post Temple of Doom in '84, or maybe even after Last Crusade, I think he would be in. And then the new trilogy happened, and then he got all butthurt about it, and then he sold it.
That was the other thing is he gets all emotional.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like, well, it's mine. And the problems kind of before where he was kind of a control freak. They managed to wrestle it away from him
Yeah.
at one point and couldn't do it again.
It's funny about that because it is his, but it's also like, do you want to keep it going and have people like you? Then you might want to listen to other people.
Right.
Sure, you can do whatever you want, but people might really dislike it.
Yeah, I
so-
mean, obviously, you can't just listen to the throngs of people who like your work creatively because that's a goddamn echo chamber nightmare. But at a certain point, if it's overwhelmingly consensus that this is a bad thing, then maybe it's worth maybe tuning in just a little.
So now the thing is, George Lucas was not the director of Indiana Jones, right? He was just it was his story. Is
Which
that-
one? The first one?
Like the first three, I thought. I thought that was Spielberg.
Yeah, he didn't direct the first
thought-
three. He wrote and produced on all three.
Okay.
yeah.
And he didn't direct Crystal Skull either. To be fair, it was the same thing there too.
Okay.
Write and direct. Or write and
I'll
produce.
start
Sorry.
us.
Okay.
I'll start us off. I think for the amount of culture influence, movie making tendencies influenced, the fact that he's associated with this now, something that's integrated into our culture. Like you say the word Luke and you think of Star Wars. You say, there's just so many things that have come from it. And so many people have so many fond memories of the movies when they were kids, spanning generations. The new movies, they're fine, I guess. He hasn't had much into that. So that's what's kind of interesting about those. But I think, man, for the influence that's there and for how much he kind of shaped a lot of people's lives in the early days, I would put 8.5 as my score.
Nice.
If it was just Star Wars, I was thinking 7.5. And then I was reminded of the Indiana Jones. Like, if you say, give me the top 10 most iconic film series, there's a good chance I'm just going to say Indiana Jones and Star Wars.
I know.
He's all over both of those. So, yeah, he had some mishaps. I would say two main mishaps, which is episodes 1 and 2. 3 I actually enjoy a lot. So, I'm going to go 8. Solid 8 for the impact that he's had in his career.
I'll go next. I actually completely agree. Like it's hard for me because I am pretty disengaged from the series, from the Star Wars series these days. But I can't ignore the impact that it's had. And yeah, I think as far as filmmakers go, he's going down in history, truly. So I have to give him an 8.
I'm torn because I disagree. I wish I didn't, but I disagree with the idea that Indiana Jones is a top 10 franchise now. If only because other than an awful movie 10 years ago, we're looking back at 1989, and I don't know how much that franchise resonates with anybody anymore. And hopefully the one that's coming out next is good.
I still think it does. I still think if you're talking iconic, it's still there.
I have to really think about it, but
Look at how much it's parodied still, which
I
is
know.
kind of crazy. Like if someone slides into a garage, they're grabbing their hat.
the thing is, even 10 years ago, I think it's top 10, no question. Now, I think you have to at least go down the list and kind of think about it. Whereas Star Wars, because it's still very much in the public forefront, is no question. So it's tough. I think it's a 7.5, and that's with me really, really despising The Phantom Menace. Like, I hate watch that and enjoy making fun of it, but that's a legitimately bad movie from start to finish that has one redeeming fight scene, and that's about it.
I actually hate episode 2 more, if you can believe that.
I might also
Between
hate episode
the
2 more.
pod racing.
God,
and
okay, pod racing is good too. That's a point in one's favor.
pod
Is
racing's
it?
sweet, dude.
Now that's pod racing.
So that has two.
that's
That has
good.
2 really good action scenes, and everything else is utter garbage. And 2 doesn't really have any highs, so it's just lows.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
I guess that's my. I don't know which one I'd score lower. Point being, both of those are terrible, as mentioned, and so they weigh against him. As influential as he was, and as important as the creation of the Star Wars universe is, and how impactful the first movie was. Again, you can't just wave away something that's truly awful in the list. So I can't go any higher than a 7.5.
But he makes it, albeit barely.
Does he? What were our scores there? I didn't keep track.
8.5, 8, and 7.5.
So,
we are
like-
Wow,
right
he
there.
does. Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't think about that.
I'm glad you didn't either. You might have been influenced to give him a 7.
Yeah, my goal is to be impartial in those. I don't want to change my score to affect it, but I'm kind of upset that he made it.
Well, thank God. I think he deserves it.
I
I think.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm glad it's by the thinnest of margins. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
I'm glad it wasn't
it
like
makes sense.
9.5 because that would be just an awful score, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can live with him having just snuck in, and then eventually, maybe when we look back on the Hall of Fame as a history, we can be like, you know what? No, just push him out.
And I give him a little bit of credit too because he's dealing with some of the worst fans on the planet.
Yeah, we've
story.
seen that in the most recent
So-
Star Wars, haven't we?
Yep. It's funny you were talking about episode 3, Sean, that you actually liked it. I remember going to see it when I was, I think came out when I was 20, and like feeling a visceral reaction to seeing him kill all the Jedi. I was
yeah.
like, no, this can't happen.
Yeah. And you knew it. Like, you knew it.
Yeah.
And that's an example of, like, it's coming. And it's so good still. Like,
Yeah,
they all.
I agree.
I mean, I think they die a little too easy for the record, but, like, the point is they're all being betrayed and gunned down one by one. And if you watch the Clone Wars, where they actually explore all these Jedi's, like, lives and, like, God, I'm not gonna be able to think of their names now, but they're like full characters in the show. They have their own episodes and everything, and then you just see them like their X-wing explodes. And you're like, damn, that sucks. And the younglings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a gutsy move to have a guy go in and kill a bunch of kids on a PG-13
Yeah.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I don't like his mom dying. Well, okay,
Well-
his mom and then the subsequent Tusken
Well, and
Raiders
then-
dying.
And then Padme being like, "Oh, it's fine. You just killed all those guys for no reason. No biggie. I still love you."
To make mistakes is to be human. What is her line to that?
God.
Yeah, something like that. To make mistakes be human. Sure, you dropped your credit card on the subway. Sure, that's fine. Killing an entire village of people.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Exact-
Love you, babe.
I mean, she didn't even bat an eye. And they could have been. So I'm watching season 3 of Daredevil right now. I'll save it for another episode. It is phenomenal, and there's a woman in there who is like bad, and she loves a bad guy. So when he does terrible things, she's like, "I support you," and it feels very different than Padme doing it, you know.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
could have been a cool thread of like, it is awful, but I don't care kind of thing. But instead, it's like she fails to grasp the situation completely.
Like,
And that's the issue.
it's bad no matter what. Forget the fact that there's this whole code, whether you agree with it or not, that says like, yeah, you can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
You can't ever do that. Don't do that. She's like, just tell Yoda. I'm sure he'll be like, yeah, okay.
And
Totally.
and the whole idea is they're bound by this chemistry that they just like, it's just this like lust.
can't
They
fight
can't
it.
get over it. It's like
There's none.
if a modicum of that could come through the screen, I would really appreciate it.
And
It's the coldest, most clinical interactions
the
I've ever
worst.
seen.
and like Hayden's the worst, but like Natalie Portman's a legitimate actress.
She's-
So what happened?
She is as bad as he is in those movies.
Yes.
Yes.
So which tells
she
you
gets dragged down.
it tells you
I
it's
think.
probably direction, which is
It
George
could
Lucas.
be direction. It could be she's fed up and is mailing it in. Like, I don't know what he would have to tell you to be like, pretend you have like no soul.
But
when
like,
you deliver this.
I've heard people say that, and I'm like, how could she mail it in? That was the start of her career,
You're right.
and she might have still mailed it in. But it's like,
She thought she was going to kill her career too,
yeah, well,
which is funny.
it did for some people, just not her.
You know who I like? Ian McDermott. That's That's his name, right? The Palpatine.
Yeah, he's
He had
great.
a blast.
He's enjoying every scene he's in.
He had some of the worst lines in the movie. Delivered it like he was going for an Oscar.
Yep.
I loved it.
I gotta say, I enjoyed Chris Lee, the guy who played Count Dooku. Even though the character was kind of dumb, I thought his interpretation was awesome.
Christopher Lee is awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
If people don't know, like, check that dude out. He's like even in his 90s, he was in a heavy metal band and he was doing all kinds of like crazy shit.
Amazing.
Samuel Jackson was also pretty good for not having a very good character, but like he makes some faces. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it.
Well, again, another good actor, but it feels like Mace Windu's line delivery is just ugh. So, all right. M. Night out. George Lucas in. That's the newest verdicts in the Hall of Fame. We have 5 so far. 3 have made it. We'll do it again sometime soon. We have all 4 of us. And we'll see who else gets in the fabled doors. Not you, M. Night, looking at you. In the meantime, that's the end of this episode. You can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media at Team Objection, on youtube.com/Objection Network for new videos 7 days a week. And finally, send emails to the show to objectionnetwork@gmail.com or comment on these videos or on our site, and we may use it for the show, just like we did today. See you next time.
Bye.